Hello and welcome back to this damn fully dualistic crusade. In this video, I'm continuing my coverage of the various books and printed materials in regards to our favorite archaeologist, Indiana Jones. And this is another of the sort of printed offshoots of the Young Indiana Jones TV series. And that's the series of Choose Your Own Adventure novels, which are actually official parts of the Choose Your Own Adventure series that sort of took the publishing world by storm in the 80s and lasted sometime into the 90s, roughly. Now, they did 8 of these for the Young Indy series, and each of them has both really wonderful painted artwork for the front cover and illustrations throughout, like the traditional Choose Your Own Adventure books do. But each book basically is a novelization of a particular episode segment. All were written by Richard Brightfield, so they all have the same author, and all the books pretty much follow the same pattern. Now, these are actually quite different to the 1980s Find Your Fate books, which were standalone books written by different authors, where basically you were some sort of kid character who gets teamed up with Indiana Jones for a variety of adventures. Now, I did do a video review covering those and the books that I've actually been able to find because they're very rare and very collectible, especially now, and they've never been reprinted. But what's interesting about those is that the ones I've read maintain a sense of adventure. They have beautiful artwork, but you can also make the wrong choice and die, or get Indy killed, or both of you can die. So there are real stakes in terms of the danger aspects. So that's what I look for in a Choose Your Own Adventure book, regardless of what series it is, of having legitimate paths that have not only different endings, but you can actually get a really bad ending and get character deaths as well. Well, unfortunately, you don't really get that with these. These are basically retelling the Young Indy episodes, and the branching paths are more of moving the order of events around, or just coming to a premature ending, or just a slightly different version of the ending, or something that branches back into the main story. So unfortunately, they're never that exciting like the Find Your Fate books are. And I've only been able to find the first 4 so far, because these themselves are a bit tricky to find. They're nowhere near as rare or desired or as expensive as the Find Your Fate books, which is why I managed to find 4 of the 8. But that's why I can only talk about these 4, because they are very scarce. But when you do find them, thankfully, they don't cost anywhere near as much as the Find Your Fate books do these days. So here's a close-up look at book 1, which again has the Choose Your Own Adventure branding, the Young Indy Chronicles logo, and I do think all of these have really nice artwork. This, of course, is based on the Valley of the Kings segment from the first episode, and basically retells that. This has the matching spine of all of this particular series, and is in the same design you'll find on all the Choose Your Own Adventures from this time period in the early 90s. So, of course, when you open it, we have the listing of the other Choose Your Own Adventure books with some Young Indy logos thrown in, but it's got the otherwise same style. So we have really nicely done illustrations peppered throughout. So on most every page, or every other page, you're going to have some sort of image or drawing, or some sort of illustration. And as you can see, we have the traditional Choose Your Own Adventure layout with the big page numbers on top, which is helpful when you're flipping back and forth. And then, of course, the instructions on the bottom to make your choice and go to the particular page. And of course, this is the youngest or younger Indy from the Young Indy series, so of course he's represented in the illustrations as well. There's also, as with most of the Young Indy books, suggested reading at the back for more historical background information, which I do appreciate seeing. So they were still trying to really push the history aspect to kids, to try and encourage them to learn more. But otherwise, this is just your standard design style for the Choose Your Own Adventure series at this time. Again, this basically just retells the episode with a little bit more detail here and there to basically build up what becomes a branching point, but it's not all that exciting because you've seen the episode, you pretty much know the story, and again, you can't ever get a really bad ending. You can't die. You can't get Indy killed by making the wrong choice. So once you realize that and that danger element is gone, this it basically would have been better if this was just a straight novelization, essentially, because that's kind of what it is, with a little bit more development in areas to pad out the runtime or build up to a branching point, and then the new material is that other pathway, which can either just be an early ending for the story, or just sort of tying back into the main story, or it's just a subplot or side quest that's added that's then quickly over and you go back into it, or it's just moving the order of scenes around. Book 2 is for South of the Border, dealing with Indy hooking up with Pancho Villa and the Mexican Revolution. Again, really nice artwork. It looks quite nice. It's in the same design as the other books in the series. So everything on these looks pretty much identical, except for, of course, the cover artwork and then the internal illustrations. But the format is exactly the same. And of course, it's still in the same page style. So you've got the same layout, the same large numbers on the top, and consistent page illustrations throughout. Book 3 deals with the Russian Revolution episode. Again, really nicely done artwork, but otherwise, it's exactly the same style and formatting. And then book 4 deals with younger Indy again, and this is the essentially Parisian artist episode. This one, I of course finally found, and it's got a little bit of sticker tear there. So of course Indy has a rather unfortunate blemish on his face. But the first two books of this run you can usually find relatively easily, but from book 3 to book 8, it gets increasingly difficult. So I was just happy to even find another one of these in the wild, and thankfully it was also very cheap. But of course, everything else remains exactly the same in terms of design and layout. So these, of course, are another interesting offshoot of the Young Indie TV series. Of course, there were comic adaptations as well in terms of essentially novelizations in the comic realm. There were junior reader books. There's also the fascinating Random House Young Indiana Jones series, which is actually standalone and has nothing to do with the TV series. And I think really it actually predates the TV series for most of them. And so that's its own thing. And then you have the actual choose your own adventure adaptations of various episodes. I think it was a really novel concept and idea, and it fits the world of Indy perfectly, and was bringing Indy back to that after the really wonderful but unfortunately very hard to find 1980s Find Your Fate books. But these feel really tame is the problem, because when you compare it to reading one of those, it's no contest, because in those you can get killed by making the wrong choice, you can get Indy killed, there's real action and danger threats, and whether it's a sea of crocodiles or an army firing machine guns, or being kidnapped, or murder attempts, all the fun stuff, all the pulpy stuff is in those. You don't really get it in these, because these feel just like kind of flat retellings of the episodes, but with branching paths to just sort of make it into a choose your own adventure book. So I just wish these utilized more of the elements of what this type of book can do in terms of making the reader feel more invested and worrying about making the wrong choice. Because in these, it's very much just, oh, okay, well, the book's over. Let me go back and see what the other path is like. It's not, oh, if I make the wrong choice, I'm going to die or fall off a cliff or something. So these are okay. They're an interesting part of, honestly, an element of merchandising that no longer exists, sadly. And I do miss elements of film and television tie-ins like this, particularly the novelization or the paperback. And there is a charm to reading choose your own adventure books in this day and age. And even if they're sort of flat or tame like these are, at least it's a fun reminder of when these books were popular, and this was something that occasionally a film or television show or a licensed property would actually go for. So these are just another fascinating part of the Indiana Jones in printed form realm. And so I wanted to cover at least the ones I've been able to find. So again, this is just half of the overall 8-book series, which I hope to finish someday in terms of finding 5 through 8. But it's just something I'm going to chip away at because these are really more of just for completion purposes. So as always, I hope my babblings about the world of Indiana Jones and especially the world of indie books has been at least somewhat fun and informative. I did enjoy reading these. I just wish they were. I wish they were more like the Find Your Fate books from the 80s in terms of, I wish they were pulpier and didn't feel like relatively safe retellings of the Young Indie episodes. Because again, if you've seen the episode, you know what's going to happen. So, there's not enough, unfortunately, to make these books as engaging as they could be. But they're still fun, and there's still a fun throwback to this particular era of children's book publishing. So as always, please do keep supporting your local independent bookstores by hopefully being able to find some of the young indie choose your own adventures if you want to try and get all 8 books. And as always, keep cracking the whip, keep reading print books, and thank you ever so much for watching.